This is the Evan Miller Report on Pundit Press Radio. Due to time-sensitive information from a delayed broadcast that aired the day before on SHR Media, some stories may be updated or irrelevant at this time. We hope you enjoy this broadcast of the Evan Miller Report on Pundit Press Radio from SHR Media. Good evening, folks. I'm Jason Miller, live in the SHR Media Newsroom. This is the Evan Miller Report. Tonight on the program, Hezbollah's leader warns Israel it won't tolerate any more attacks. Also, Pakistan's Shia mosque has blasted in Singapore as it kills dozens tonight. Also tonight, a U.S.-led coalition airstrike killed a chemical weapons specialist with Islamic State in Iraq. We'll tell you what happened. And tonight on the program, we have an exclusive interview with Amy Day, president of Meet Me at the Well, as she talks to us about the very dangerous prostitution of sex trafficking here in the United States. All that and more, plus Corey Evan.
Thank you, Jay. It seems I won't be voting for Mitt Romney in 2016 after all. His name will not be on the ballot. George Zimmerman makes another appearance in the headlines. It's as if he won the lotto. Oil may be suffering, but they say wages aren't. You be the judge. San Antonio Spur Tim Duncan is suing his financial advisor. Why? You'll find out. And I check out the headliners at the Super Bowl halftime show. I'm just reporting on what's going on, ladies and gentlemen. All that and more in tonight's Evan Miller Report, your conservative news source, starting now.
Live from Southern California, this is the Evan Miller Report. Jason Miller with news and politics, Corey Evan with business and entertainment. This is the Evan Miller Report on SHR Media and Pundit Press Radio. Here now, Jason Miller.
And a very good evening on this Friday, January the 30th, 2015. I'm Jason Miller along with Corey Evan.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's still cloudy around here. We finally got some rain from those clouds. Thank you very much.
Okay, folks.
And
like
from what I hear, we're looking for...
Corey Evan here, so
what echo? I'm not doing things.
I don't even know what is going on. Let's do that. Alright, let's try that one more time, folks, because it looks like Corey is in there on the line twice. So we will get him back. Hopefully that's just a small technical glitch with our satellite up in LA. We know it is raining up in LA. It's a surprise storm up there. So this may have to do with the weather today. So we do apologize to our audience for that slight technical glitch tonight. So hopefully we can get him back on the line here in a short time. And I do apologize, ladies and gentlemen. Well, this may explain something here. Let's try to get this again. Okay, folks, so we'll get right to the news, and I do apologize for the slight delay. And for those of you who were listening to the Liz Laura's Soldier Talk radio show, that show is going to be extended on Pundit Press Radio tonight. A lot of good topics being talked about with Benghazi tonight, so they are going to probably do a slight extension on that program tonight. And following this program on the SHR Media Network tonight, the Liz Laura's Soldier Talk radio show from earlier this evening will be rebroadcast in its entirety here on the network. But once again, folks, we have a great program for you tonight. Amy Day.
Please leave a message.
And folks, I do apologize once again because we apparently seem to be having these technical glitches here. Alright folks, Let's see if we get Corey Evan back. Corey, do we have you, sir?
Is this finally working, or is it still echoing?
It is still echoing. I don't know what is going on at this particular point, so...
Just...
Okay. So what we're going to do, ladies and gentlemen, is we are going to, in an attempt to reset of our own, we're going to take a slight commercial break, see if we get these technical difficulties fixed, and we do apologize for these technical difficulties tonight. We don't know what happened tonight, but we will be right back after these messages. We'll take an early break here and see if we can get this fixed.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
How you doing? John Grant here. When I'm not slaving over a hot microphone on the 405radio.com Saturdays at 10 a.m. Eastern, I check out Sean and Clint here at Sackheads Radio. We all appreciate the best political bloggers, writers, and commentators. We either get them on our shows or we make fun of them, as it should be. So check us out live Saturdays at 10 a.m. Eastern or forever on the podcasts on the 405radio.com.
This is Tammy Jackson, inviting you to join me on the Tammy Jackson Show every Tuesday night at 7 p.m. Pacific on the 405radio.com. Put down that remote and tune into the show that covers politics, guns and the Second Amendment, religious liberties, sanctity of life, the military, and more. I host newsworthy guests and work hard to be a conservative radio show that's not like all the others. So save Tuesday nights at 7 p.m. Pacific for me, Tammy Jackson, on the 405media.com.
Hello, I'm Paul, a student at Hillsdale College. Here is my professor, Dr. Larry Arnn, on the separation of church and state.
America's founders believed in the separation of church and state, in that the country was not to have an official religion or an official sect. But that did not mean that government was to be hostile to religion, or even indifferent to religion, as many today argue. In fact, America's founding document, the Declaration of Independence, includes both a reference to God as the author of the laws of nature and a confident assertion that human beings are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights. Far from being hostile or indifferent to religion, America's founders understood the theology of the Declaration to be an essential part of the education of citizens.
This Constitution Minute was brought to you by Hillsdale College. To join the national conversation on the Constitution, go to constitutionminute.org.
Hi, this is Rooster from Outcry Radio. Catch me here on Blog Talk Radio every Saturday night at 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, or follow my blog. Now, back to the Sackheads.
Let's get back to the Evan Miller Report on SHR Media and Pundit Press Radio.
Welcome back to the Evan Miller Report, and I do apologize, ladies and gentlemen. We had some slight technical difficulty, but I think we have Corey Evan back.
I hope so as well, because I already reset this thing twice.
Yes,
no echo, right?
And you're sounding better already, so don't know what was going on. We had an echo during the broadcast. Don't know what happened there, ladies and gentlemen. So we'll get to the news as soon as we can.
It was a ghost in the machine.
There was a ghost in the machine, as they would say, Corey. Unfortunately, that was the case. So let's get right to the news. Corey Evan, just a minute with some of the national news, and we'll get to this news as much as possible, and we will not be taking another commercial break since we already got the commercial break out of the way, ladies and gentlemen. So first we start off with Hezbollah, where their leader said today that this week's deadly cross-border attack on Israeli soldiers was a message that it will no longer tolerate any Israeli attacks against its members. Sheikh Hassan Israeli told thousands of supporters in South Beirut that Hezbollah does not fear war and is ready if Israel provokes further violence. It was Nasrallah's first comments since 6 Hezbollah fighters and an Iranian general were killed on January the 18th. In an Israeli airstrike in Syria. The group retaliated on Wednesday with a cross-border rocket attack that killed 2 Israeli soldiers and wounded 7. The Hezbollah threat comes as the group, which has an arsenal of tens of thousands of missiles and rockets, is currently preoccupied with the war in neighboring Syria, where it is aiding Syrian President Assad's forces. At least 40 people have been killed in a bomb blast at the Shia mosque in southern Pakistan, officials say. Dozens were wounded in the attack after Friday prayers in Shinkapur district of Sindhi province, and the death toll is expected to rise. Sunni militants linked to the Palestinian Taliban said they carried out the attack. Local media reports suggest the blast could have been a suicide attack, but police are still investigating. There has been a rise of sectarian violence in Pakistan in recent years. Sunni militant groups have targeted the Shia minority in the past. A U.S.-led coalition airstrike killed a chemical weapons specialist with the ISIS group in Iraq who once worked for Saddam Hussein, according to U.S. military officials today. The air raid carried out last Saturday near Mosul took out Abdul Malik, whose training provided the terrorist group with expertise to pursue a chemical weapons capability, the military said in a statement. Malik had worked at a chemical weapons production plant under Saddam's regime and later forged an affiliation with al-Qaeda in Iraq in 2005 before joining the extremist ISIS group, according to Central Command. His death is expected to temporarily degrade and disrupt the terrorist network and diminish ISIS's ability to potentially produce and use chemical weapons against innocent people, it said. U.S. officials had not publicly referred to Maliki previously as a key figure. South African ARPA head era death squad commander Eugene Koch has been granted parole after 20 years. He was nicknamed Primeval for his role in the killing and maiming of activists fighting while minority rule in the 1980s and early 1990s. Justice Minister Michael Mesta said de Kock would be released in the interest of nation building. De Kock, 66, was sentenced in 1996 to 2 life terms in prison and a further 212 years for the crimes he committed. Mr. Massa said the time and place of Dr. Koch's release would not be made public. A day of events has been held in London to mark the 50th anniversary of Sir Winston Churchill's funeral. The boat that carried the former Prime Minister's coffin along the Thames in 1965 repeated the journey with members of his family among those on board. Earlier, Prime Minister David Cameron had laid a wreath in memory of the World War II leader, whom he called a great leader and Great Britain. An evening service was held at Westminster Abbey. Speaking at the service in Parliament at the start of the day of commemorations, Prime Minister David Cameron said, quote, "If there was one aspect of this man I admire more than any other, it's the Churchill the patriot." Mr. Cameron said the UK needed to draw on the courage and resolve of Churchill to battle every affront to freedom in this century. A procession from the service at St. Mary's Undercroft Chapel ended under what has become known as Churchill Arch. It was rebuilt at Churchill's suggestion following a direct hit from a German bomb back in May 1941. And finally, to wrap up tonight's international news before I send it over to Corey Evan in Los Angeles for some of the day's other news, encouraging terror attacks against Canada will become a crime under legislation proposed by Prime Minister Stephen Harper. The measure will also expand the powers of the country's spy agency, allowing it to take direct action to stop attacks. Work began on the bill after 2 attacks days apart last year. It is expected to be passed by Mr. Harper's Conservative majority in Parliament. Under current law, it is a crime to make a specific threat. The new measure would make it a crime to call for a terror attack against the country or Canadians generally, including online. We cannot tolerate this any more than we tolerate people that make jokes about bomb threats at airports. Anyone engaging in that kind of activity is going to face the full force of the law in the future. The maximum prison sentence for those convicted under the new measure would be 5 years. Among the critics of the bill are the British Columbian Civil Liberties Association, which called the legislation misguided and said it would not make Canadians any safer. And now it's time to send it over to Corey Evan. He has the day's other news. Corey, take it away.
I'll take it, Jay. Mitt Romney's announcement today that he will not run for president a third time has reset the budding 2016 field, with political strategists saying his exit could position Jeb Bush, BS artist, as establishment favorite while helping him assemble a campaign team in key early voting states. At the same time, the Florida the former Florida governor could be an even bigger target for party conservatives. Mitt Romney, who criticized both Romney and Bush as too moderate. Now, only Bush remains. And as you know, we here at the Evan Miller Report are not fans of him because he supports the common crud. But at any rate, quote, unless New Jersey Governor Chris Christie can show he is more viable than he has demonstrated at this point, we are going to have one establishment candidate versus an entire conservative field. Steve Deese, a syndicated conservative radio talk show host based in Iowa, told FoxNews.com, being the establishment candidate would have its upsides. Now, veteran operatives who were torn between Bush and Romney will be free to put their energies into the Bush camp should he decide to run. Had Romney run, both men would be vying for the same resources, including Wall Street money and institutional party support. Even before Romney's announcement, Bush was starting to pick up members of Romney's old gang. On Thursday, Bush's team confirmed that Romney's former senior Iowa advisor, David Cockle, had signed on as a senior strategist for Bush's newly launched Right to Rise PAC. Reports also emerged that former Romney donors were moved.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, looks like we have lost Corey Evan at this particular point, and I do apologize about that. All right, in the meantime, we'll go ahead and get some D.C. news out of the way. If Corey Evan does attempt to call back in, we will, of course, patch him right back in here to the program. 3 top U.S. Republican lawmakers, including Representative Paul Ryan, will lead an effort to craft new health care reforms that could replace Obamacare, party officials said today. House leadership said Ryan, the former Republican vice presidential nominee, would join Energy and Commerce Committee Chairman Fred Upton and Education and Workplace Committee John Klein as part of the new health care working group. The 3 and their respective committees will attempt to produce a thoughtful replacement strategy that could one day accompany Republican efforts to repeal the Affordable Care Act. The Republican-controlled House, which has voted numerous times to overthrow the health care law, is expected to do so again next week. Republicans have failed in the past to reach a consensus on legislation to replace Obamacare, and analysts say that stubborn differences without the party persist. And now I believe we have Corey Evan back. Let's go ahead and send it back to him and back to the story he was already doing in progress. Corey?
Right. As I was rudely interrupted, I was about to say that doubts lingered over whether Jeb Bush, the BS artist, could manage a third campaign and win. Or Romney, that is. Bush also flew out to Utah for a private meeting with Romney last week. Romney didn't quite frame things the way that it sounded, according to Mr. Deese, on a conference call with supporters only 3 weeks after he surprised donors by announcing he was weighing a run. The 2012 GOP presidential nominee said he was out. Romney says he believes that he could win the nomination and that he would have had enough funding and support, but he said it would have been a difficult test and a hard fight. He said he didn't want to make it more difficult for someone else to emerge who may have a better chance of winning. On the heels of the announcement, Romney planned to have dinner with Christie Friday night. Along with Christie, plenty of other potential GOP candidates could compete with Bush for the big donors and the high-profile strategists, including Florida Senator Marco Rubio and others. But there are signs that Bush, after avoiding a big conservative summit in Des Moines last weekend that Christie attended, is ready to make the foray into the first-in-the-nation caucus state in a big way. Stay with us here at the Evan Miller Report as we keep an eye on developments in potential 2016 nominees, and we will bring you the latest as it becomes available. For the second time in just over a year, prosecutors have backed away from filing criminal charges against George Zimmerman. Oh boy. In a domestic violence case because a woman, initially upset and angry, has changed her story. This from the Orlando Sentinel. This time, the allegation was that Zimmerman had thrown a wine bottle at a woman who had just moved out. Last year, it was a different girlfriend who said he had pointed a shotgun at her and locked her out of the house. Neither woman was injured. Zimmerman is the former Sanford Neighborhood Watch volunteer acquitted of second-degree murder, as you know, for the Trayvon Martin case. He didn't return a phone call to the Sentinel Friday. Since his trial, he's had several encounters with PD. Twice he's been arrested, accused by girlfriends of getting violent during breakups, and in 2013 his estranged wife accused him of threatening her and her father with a gun while they were moving out her belongings. The most recent event was 3 weeks ago when he was arrested on January 9th, accused by Lake Mary police of aggravated assault. At 11:30 p.m. 4 days earlier, an officer heard breaking glass and saw 28-year-old Brittany Brunel, Zimmerman's dental hygienist, drive away from their home without turning on her headlights. When officers pulled her over, she told them that she and Zimmerman had argued about her decision to move out. She and her 5-year-old son had lived with them for about 2 months. That's not a long time at all, is it, Jay? Yeah, Zimmerman had insisted that she return a painting, she told police, and she did, but while she was at the house, Zimmerman started yelling, she said, and took away her phone. He then threw it at the wine bottle at her, she said. She and Zimmerman had strictly been friends and roommates, although they had sex one drunken night, she told police. And then she described him as insane, suicidal, and a psychopath. This is one of those cases that sound a little bit crazy, Jay. Don't you think?
In my opinion, I think the two just gone nutter and they just need to get it the hell out of the American people's lives.
Yes, unfortunately. I think that has downgraded to the same status that Bristol Palin earned on our old Palomar College show in 2011. You know, just brief mention and then move on. At least that's what I intend in the future. Anyway, moving back home to San Bernardino. What? San Bernardino? I can't wait to read this one. A San Bernardino man charged with killing a family of 4 whose bodies were found buried in the desert can represent himself in court, a judge ruled today. Charles Merritt, a.k.a. Chase Merritt, asked to act as his own lawyer in the hope of speeding up proceedings because he has congestive heart failure, said Robert Ponce, his former attorney. He said the case was also causing financial trouble for Merritt and his family. Quote, he doesn't have an actual time frame as to how good his condition is going to be in 6 to 8 months, Ponce told reporters after a hearing, adding that he would have needed that much time to prepare for a preliminary hearing. He's just scared to death he's not going to make it, unquote. Merritt has pled not guilty to 4 counts of murder in the deaths of Joseph McStay, his wife, Summer, and their children, 4-year-old Gianni and 3-year-old Joseph Jr. The family disappeared from their San Diego County home in 2010, and their bodies were discovered by an off-road driver in Shallow Grave in San Bernardino County in November 2013. Merritt, who was McStay's business associate, was arrested last year. Authorities still have not revealed what led them to Merritt. In court today, Merritt told the judge that he has 2 years of college, worked as a manufacturing designer, and wanted to represent himself despite warnings that it was considered a foolish decision. San Bernardino County Judge in Superior Court, Michael A. Smith granted the request but asked for written approval from Merritt's doctor, saying his medical condition would not be a problem. Smith set a preliminary hearing for April 7th. Smith also denied news media requests to unseal documents in the case, claiming that releasing the info could compromise the investigation by law enforcement and jeopardize Merritt's due process rights. More than a dozen news organizations, including the AP, had argued that San Bernardino County authorities can't keep case documents sealed because it's now a prosecution and not an investigation. The motion asked the judge to release search warrants, affidavits, and statements of probable cause related to the investigation. Prosecutors and defense attorneys opposed unsealing the documents. Prosecutors said they expect to release the records by the preliminary hearing. A formidable submarine of the Confederate States of America, Hundley played a minor role in the Civil War and demonstrated the potential of undersea warfare. In its very short lifespan, it sank a number of times, killing most of its crew, including its inventor Horace Hundley himself, who was aboard even though he was not enlisted in the Confederate Armed Forces. On February 17, 1864, Hundley sank 1,240 short-ton screw sloop USS Housatonic on Union blockade duty in Charleston's outer harbor. However, it could not return to the base and sank. In all, 21 Confederacy crewmen were lost in its 3 sinkings. And almost a century after it was sunk, the submarine was once again raised and gave scientists a first and closer look at the hull of the Confederate submarine H.L. Hundley, the first submarine in history to sink an enemy warship. Experts hope to solve the mystery of what caused the hand-cranked submarine to sink after destroying an 1,100 metric ton enemy vessel. Paul Mardikin, senior conservator of the Hundley project, said, "It's like unwrapping a Christmas gift after 15 years. We have been wanting to do this for many years now, unquote. The submarine was discovered just off the South Carolina coast in 95. It was finally raised around 2000 and was taken to a conservation lab in North Charleston. It's a tough job with the vessel covered with a hardened glob of caked sand, sediment, and rust that scientists call concretion. And finally, the ruling is in. The final resting place for Lee Harvey Oswald's casket, just the casket, belongs to the assassin's brother. In a lawsuit dripping in historical significance, State District Judge Don Cosby of Fort Worth, Texas, ordered the Pinewood casket returned to Robert Oswald, who lives in Wichita Falls, after a local burial service. Baumgardner Funeral Home claimed it was the rightful owner. Ah, man, that's a piece of history right there. And wouldn't you say that that's an interesting development, them giving the casket to the JFK assassin's brother?
That sounds just disturbing to me, Corey. It's unbelievable to me. All right, you got the latest on the business news. How'd the markets fare today?
It was not a very good day at all today. Everything was in the red, stateside at least. The Dow was down 251 at 17,164. The Nasdaq down 48 at 4635. The S&P down 26 at 1994. And overseas, it was mostly the same, although the Nikkei was up 68 points. American consumers stepped on the gas in the fourth quarter just as companies hit the brakes. The result was that while the world's largest economy grew at a 2.6% annualized rate, the gain fell short of the median forecast of economists surveyed by Bloomberg and was well below the 5% pace in the third quarter, Commerce Department figures showed today in Washington. Cheaper gas and the largest employment increase since '99 are boosting household confidence, increasing the odds that consumer spending can sustain gains following its biggest advance in almost 9 years. At the same time, business investment is cooling as companies such as Caterpillar say plunging oil prices, a rising dollar, and slowing growth abroad hurt sales globally. And JSA, you've got our special guest.
Yes, we do, Corey. Thank you very much. Corey Evan with the business news. Corey Evan will be back later in the program with tonight's lawsuits across America and the entertainment report. Now, ladies and gentlemen, many of you heard the Exceptional Conservative show last night with Ken McClinton, and he had Amy Day on from Meet Me at the Well. And ladies and gentlemen, I can tell you last night, our audience figures who tuned in to the Exceptional Conservative show skyrocketed. So much that our partners over at Pundit Press, I was told that they had to reset their website not once but twice, and shrmedia.com was also at the brink of shutting down because we had so many listeners at once tuning into the program. Now, what is the topic, you might ask, if you're listening into the program? The topic happens to be sex trafficking. And Amy Day, who is the president and founder of Meet Me at the Well, joins me now. Amy, why is this topic not being talked about? Obviously, people were very shocked about the topic last night if they were tuning in to Ken's program, and that's why I have you here tonight, because this is a topic that's not being talked about on your local news over wherever you live here in the United States, and it is certainly not being talked about on the national news programs, on the half-hour news programs every night.
Yeah, I think there's, first of all, thank you for having me on. And I think there's several reasons. One is people, they want feel-good stories. They don't want to hear that this is happening in their backyard. They want to believe that sex trafficking is something that's only happening in major cities and that it's only a foreign issue and that it's not happening here. So it makes people uncomfortable, and they don't want to hear about it. But also the people who are involved, they don't want to see these people as victims. It's easier to believe that these victims are making choices that are leading to this, and that, they put themselves there. They made that choice. They got themselves in that position. So it's just easier to write it off that way. And they don't want to see that they didn't make this choice, that they were forced into this, and that now they're trapped in a life that they cannot get out of.
Now, Amy, isn't it true, though, that way our social system is today, And I can tell you, I speak from experience going to college in the radio and TV industry. I had my professor tell me, what is up with the ratings? Why do these weather women and these sportswomen dress so sexually clad in clothes? He says, Jason, it's a clear thing. People will watch. It's sex and puppy dogs. Has our society become so sexualized and desensitized that people are used to seeing this kind of stuff every day? The same stuff that we see in the movies. Because really, people in this nation, when you mention sex trafficking, they look at you and they say, "Sex trafficking? What are you talking about? That's something like out of a Hollywood movie," or that kind of stuff only happens over in the Middle East where the Muslims abuse their Muslim wives, or it happens over in Africa where these young 15-year-old girls are abused and taken into the slave trade.
Yeah, I think media and culture has a big part of it. Like you said, everything is so sexualized now that it's normal. And people also see pornography as just being a normal thing, that it's just a normal way to express yourself as long as you're not hurting anyone around you. But what people don't realize is that pornography is feeding into the sex trafficking. Most of the people in pornography initially did not make a choice to be in that kind of life. They may have made a choice to do pornography, but that usually comes after they've already been in a abusive, ongoing struggle. And that comes after the fact, and it's just a part of life. It's all they know. And it's because our culture has just made sex so normal, and even the abuse of sex so normal.
Now, I did in researching this program, and I was very surprised to see that the 3 states here in the United States are highlighting in sex trafficking and also human trafficking as well. We'll cover human trafficking on another program. We'll focus on the sex trafficking. But 3 states that were highlighted in my research were the states of Michigan, Florida, and California. Now, California I don't find so surprising, but I do find surprising is that the state of Michigan happens to be part of the sex trafficking, Amy. And here are some statistics. According to a 2011 Department of State report, victims are largely from Thailand, India, Mexico, Philippines, Haiti, Honduras, El Salvador, and the Dominican Republic. Is it true that a lot of these sex trafficking victims are coming over internationally from different countries and are becoming prostitutes here in the United States, or is it happening here in the United States more that we have more of our young girls from our U.S. bred families here in the United States?
It is both. I think the misconception is that it's all international, and it's actually over 60% of the time U.S. citizens, people of this country, children here. But, 60%, that leaves over 30%, because it's 60-some percent, I don't remember the exact statistic, but it's over 30% are international and are coming internationally. A lot of them are coming tricked into it. They're being promised domestic servitude jobs for good pay, and they come here and they're forced into sex slavery. They come in and immediately are raped and forced into brothels, and language barrier is a huge thing when somebody's coming from another country. They don't speak English. So to get help is even more difficult. But yeah, over 60% of the time it is our citizens. There's actually a statistic that 1/3 of the 2.8 million U.S. kids who run away every year are recruited into pornography and prostitution within 48 hours of leaving their place.
Now, research conducted by the University of California at Berkeley on the behalf of the anti-trafficking organization Free the Slaves found that about 46% of people in slavery in the United States are forced into prostitution. The U.S. Department of Justice prosecuted 360 defendants for human trafficking from the year 2001 to 2007 and gained 238 convictions. From 2007 through 2008, there was 1,229 alleged cases of human trafficking nationally. 1,018 of them, nearly 83%, were sex trafficking cases. Sex trafficking has a close relationship with migrant smuggling operations headed by Mexican, Eastern European, and Asian crime organizations. Domestic servitude claims 27% of people in slavery in the U.S., horticulture 10%, and other occupations are 17%. Do you agree with those numbers?
Yeah. According to the statistics that I've seen, I know I follow the U.S. Department of Justice, and Polaris Project are pretty much where I get my statistics from, and that's pretty much in line, yeah.
This is interesting to me, and I was listening to you on Ken's program last night, and I was shocked at how damaging this is. Now, can you tell me what state in the United States is number one for sex trafficking here in the United States, if you know?
I don't know. I don't know that there is an exact number. There might be. I'm not sure. I know that Florida definitely has a huge issue, but I wouldn't say they're number one. I am not sure if there is. I know that it is in every state, that every single state has had issues with sex trafficking, they have had reports of sex trafficking, and Polaris Project gets calls from every single state to their human trafficking hotline.
Now, there are certain states here, such as the state of Michigan, for example, that passed a bill which specifically outlawed human trafficking in Michigan. The governor, Jennifer Graham, signed House Bill 5747 back in 2006, and which was introduced by the Republican Representative Phil Pavlio over there. And the relevant state statutes over there was enacted, which set grounds for further prosecution in human trafficking cases. Do these laws, such as in the state of Michigan and being passed in other states, are these helping or are they not helping?
I think the laws can be very helpful. If they're written the right way, I think a big part of it is that what we need to change with these laws is to make it so that the victims are not prosecuted, that the victims are not arrested and thrown in prison, because that's pretty much how it's usually handled now. We need to change it so that we're going after traffickers and pimps, and we need to make it so that it's not so. Right now, most states, it's almost impossible to prove to prove the guilt of a trafficker. Because there is no physical bondage. There's no chains holding anyone back, and it makes it very, very difficult to prove that a person is being forced. We need to change these laws so that we can use mental bondage as a reasonable way to prosecute someone.
Now, you bring up a great point. I was talking to someone. I just happened to be in town running errands this morning, and we happened to get into a conversation, and we have very similar political views, and he asked the pointed question to me, and I'm going to ask it of you. Why are we not going after and I'm going to use the word pimp here, so if any of you are offended by this, then, this is what it is. This is what these are called. Why is the police not going after the pimps, the ones who are causing this, who are the middle person, so to speak, in starting all this? Why are they not going after the pimps in the first place? Instead, as you stated, going after these prostitutes that are put on the street by these pimps?
Yeah, that's a good question. One, like I said, it's very difficult to prove. It's very hard, and a lot of these pimps have money. And sadly, I think as a whole, I would say most police officers, most agencies are doing the right thing. But there are cases of the bad apples, and I have heard cases where departments are getting paid off and getting paid to look the other way. And then, of course, when a pimp does get arrested, he has money. He's going to get a good lawyer, and that lawyer is going to point the finger at that victim who has been a prostitute for years and been a drug addict, even though the drugs actually typically come after the prostitution begins. But they're going to point to all that and say, she's not reliable, you can't believe her, and discredit her repeatedly until she's let go. And it makes it very, very difficult, again, to prove those cases. But that's why we need to change these laws and change how these cases are prosecuted and change what's required in these cases.
Take me, if you can, into the mind of one of these prostitutes, because you spoke briefly last night how they have to deal, how these prostitutes have to deal mentally, and how they are given a choice and that they are given freedom, but at the same time, it is almost like you are mentally brainwashed to believe, hey, yeah, you're walking around free, but if you try to run away or you try leaving town, you're afraid that your pimp is going to come after you, that he's going to come to assault you, he's going to come and do harm to your life, and you feel that indebted to that pimp. Explain to us a little bit about that.
Well, it starts, most of these women are abused first in childhood, and that's a big key. When you're a child and something happens traumatic to you, it distorts you. It distorts how you think for the rest of your life. And almost everyone who is a victim of sex trafficking is first sexually abused as a child. And when something traumatic like that happens, your views on sex, your views on your value and your worth greatly change. And as a child, when you're being abused that way, many of them either don't tell anybody, or a lot of times whoever's care they're in knows it's happening and they turn a blind eye, or they tell the child they're lying or to just deal with it. And so that child thinks, okay, well, this is normal. This is supposed to happen. This is what I'm good for. So that's reinforced at a very early age. And then progress on to a few years. The average age in the United States that a prostitute begins selling is 12 years old or 13 years old. And when you think of a 13-year-old, a 13-year-old getting arrested for prostitution is completely ridiculous considering the age of consent for sex consensual sex is 16 years old. So how can a 13-year-old be arrested for prostitution when she can't even legally consent to sex until she's 16 years old? So, they're abused in childhood, and then they get to where, they're living in an abusive home. They run away, or even if they don't run away, they're out somewhere and they meet somebody who starts treating them really nice. I mentioned this case on the show last night, but I read in a book called Girls Like Us by Rachel Lloyd. There's a case of a girl that was, I believe, 13 years old. She had run away from home. She was standing outside a train station, and this guy came up, started sweet-talking her, and he took her out to dinner. And she said he took her to this really nice restaurant, and she had a really fancy dinner. And then she owed him. And she had just met this guy, but she owed him. So that night, she sold herself. And the restaurant that he took her to was Red Lobster. But because he took her to Red Lobster, and she felt in her mind that was fancy, that she owed him. So it's that bondage of owing him. And it's what she's good for. It's what I've always been good for. It's what everybody does to me. So I guess it's what I'm supposed to do for the rest of my life. And you have that at such a young age, and then just progress on, and there is no escaping that. So when they are finally beginning to be trafficked, they're bonded to this trafficker, and usually the trafficker is, they don't call him their pimp. Usually it's their boyfriend. And these girls honestly feel a connection to their boyfriend, and they feel like their boyfriend cares for them, and they even rationalize abuse that he gives them. If he beats her because she didn't make enough money, she says, well, I know how much money he told me to come home with, and, well, I didn't do it. So, and they rationalize that. And it's an abused life that they just have come to accept. So even though they are not having chains holding them down in the house, they are mentally chained to that person. And it takes counseling, and it takes effort for them to realize that that's not what they are, that they're worth so much more than that, because they've never been taught otherwise. They've always been taught that that's all they're worth.
Now, this isn't only mental. This can get physical as well, and I can speak to this a little bit because I am an assault victim myself. I got assaulted by someone in college, and the name of that person will remain nameless on this program. But I'm a victim of assault. Explain to us how these girls, young women, and even young men, if you can speak to this too, how these young women and young men have the fear in their mind that if they go to the police or if they try to go get help from an organization such as yours over at Meet Me at the Well, that they're going to be physically assaulted or they're going to be physically harmed in some way.
Well, and you're saying men, and definitely it does happen to men too. It's actually about 32% of the time the victims are male, and people don't realize that. But 32% of the time the victim is male. But yeah, these people have been taught by their trafficker or their pimp that police and whoever else is the enemy, that they're going to hurt you and I'm going to protect you, I'm going to take care of you. So they have that on that end. And sadly, as I was saying, there are corrupt officers, and I do not think that's as a whole. I have great respect for police officers, so I am not saying this against police departments as a whole, but there are corrupt police officers, there are corrupt politicians, and there are cases of girls getting raped by police officers, getting arrested, and police officers saying, you need to have sex with me, or I'm going to haul you into jail, I'm going to do this. And so they're threatened in that way, and that just reinforces that fear of the other side and proves that that's all they're there for, that's all they're good for.
Now, explain a little bit, because sometimes these girls, they feel they have nowhere to go to. They don't know about organizations such as yours. Explain how sometimes these young girls and even these young men will want to commit suicide to end their suffering.
Yeah, suicide is... people think of it as, God, why would you ever do that? And, oh, well, that's the easy way out. But for these people, it's a reasonable way out. And honestly, most of these people, most victims aren't necessarily suicidal. They are living their life. But when you're in that life, it's reasonable to get to a place of saying, I don't want to deal with this anymore. And suicide is an end to the pain. It's not having to deal with that anymore. When you've only known pain your entire life, and the only kindness you've been shown is from the one who is putting you on the street, but, he buys you dinner and he tells you he loves you and he buys you a nice necklace every now and then, that pain is very difficult. So, yeah, suicide is definitely a high risk for this population. Honestly, the life expectancy of a prostitute, I think, I'm not positive on this. I'm trying to remember. I think it was about 27. But I'm not remembering exactly. It was about 27 that I saw, and I believe that came from Polaris Project.
Can you stick with us for another segment? Because you know what?
Sure.
What? This is a conversation that I think needs to continue. We have extra time tonight. We don't have a program after us tonight, so we will continue. We are speaking tonight with Amy Day. She is the president of Meet Me at the Well, and we'll be back in just a moment right here on the Evan Miller Report. You're listening to the SHR Media Networks. Stay with us.
You're listening to the Evan Miller Report on SHR Media and Pundit Press Radio.
In a moment, cancer changed our lives forever. We were told nothing could be done to enjoy these final moments together.
But in that moment, when all seemed lost,
St. Jude Children's Research Hospital gave us hope.
Because at this moment, St. Jude Children's Research Hospital is saving lives with pioneering research and care. We're changing the way the world treats childhood cancer by sharing our discoveries with doctors and scientists everywhere.
And we'll never have to pay St. Jude for anything, ever.
At this moment, she wants to be in her own bed.
I want to be back at school with my friends.
I want to be outside playing.
Please take a moment and join St. Jude in finding cures and saving children. Visit stjude.org.
Let's get back to the Evan Miller Report on SHR Media and Pundit Press Radio.
And welcome back to the Evan Miller Report. I am Jason Miller. Corey Evan back later in the program with tonight's lawsuits across America and the Entertainment Report. Now back to our special guest, Amy Day. She is the president of Meet Me at the Well, organization that helps sex trafficking victims. Amy, welcome back to the program.
Thank you.
So I want to continue on this conversation. We'll talk about what your organization does to help these victims in just a moment. But I was reading articles online, and it says that one of the big major sporting events of the year, which is coming up this weekend on Sunday, Super Bowl Sunday, happens to be one of the most profitable days of the year when it comes to pimps and prostitutes. Is there any truth to that?
Absolutely. Anytime... This is a different way to say it, but anytime you have a large group of men, specifically at an event like that, it's a lot of adult men getting drunk. Simple way to put it. And they are looking for fun. They're looking for things to do. Most of the attendees at the Super Bowl are men, and they are not there with their wives or girlfriends, so sex is something to do. So yeah, they actually traffic girls into these cities. Girls are staying in 10 girls to a hotel room or a motel room, and it's just ridiculous.
I can understand why, and I think the American public is very naive. They think the Super Bowl, one of the most profitable days of the year actually for advertising. See all this advertising go on, whether it be the GoDaddy commercials, the Doritos commercials, the Budweiser commercials. You see it all out there. And of course, then there's the football team. A big major city is going to be making money and helping profits because the Super Bowl, it's a moneymaker. It's costing money. People are coming from across the country to see this big game of the year. This is like the big World Series of football, and it's the one big single game of the year, yet people do not realize what happens inside that stadium or even happens in that state. And the state happens to be Arizona this year. And and it's not going to be snowing in the likes of Arizona. At least we believe the weather is going to be fair on that day. So prostitution is going to be up.
Yeah, honestly, even if it was snowing, I don't think that would make a difference. Sadly, I think the girls would still be out there. I know Fox News posted an article today referring to Annie Lobert, who is the founder of an organization called Hookers for Jesus in Las Vegas, Nevada. And Annie actually is a former sex trafficking victim. And it was a blog that she did today or yesterday, she posted it. And it was her experience as a victim and what the Super Bowl meant to her. And she said that she would see between 10 to 30 different men a night. And no matter how tired she was, it didn't matter. She had to put on a happy face and pretend she was having fun. And when she'd get home with, $1,500 in her pocket, she had to hand it all over to her pimp or get beaten. 100% of the earnings.
It's quite disturbing to me that we, being the nation that provides the most freedoms in the world, allows this to happen in our nation. And on top of it, we have the Democrats coming out here saying that there is a war on women and that we are attacking women because they don't have the right to get an abortion for their baby. And I do believe there's a war on women. This is the war on women, that we allow these international human traffickers to bring these poor 15-year-old girls and even into their 20s over into this country and to allow them to do this sex trafficking and this human trafficking within our own nation. I thought we had better values, Amy, and it looks like it doesn't matter what political party you're in. It doesn't look like our federal government doesn't want to deal with it.
Yeah, I'll agree with that. It doesn't even matter what political party you're in. It's an issue on both sides. It's an issue that both sides need to deal with. And sadly, I think at this point, both sides aren't doing as well as they could. I'm hoping to see both Republicans and Democrats step up on this, and it's definitely the war on women. That covers so many different aspects, and this is definitely a big part of that. I'm glad to see that it is an issue that people are talking about now. In the last 5 years, it's come to light a lot more than it was 10 years ago. But 10 years ago, it was a problem. It's just nobody knew about it. And in the last 5 years, it's something that's been coming out more. And I'm hoping that in the next 5 years, it'll be even more in the open, that we see these laws changing. Several states have great laws regarding sex trafficking or human trafficking in general. And I would love to see more states. Delaware is changing how we're handling things. Our laws haven't changed yet as much as I would love to see them change. The laws haven't changed, but Delaware has a court that is now dealing with these victims in a different way. It's the trauma-informed care, and it was created by Commissioner McDonough here in Delaware. And it's looking at them as victims. These women, they choose to be part of this program. It's not forced, because you can't force somebody to recover. You can't force somebody to choose to get better. But these women who honestly want to change their life are able to go through this program and have a recovery helps provide proper recovery. I'm sorry. And the courts are really doing a good job here in Delaware, and I would love to see the laws changed a little more so that these victims... Go ahead.
Well, let's speak a little bit about your home state of Delaware, and what your organization does to help. And you mentioned the courts are doing a little bit more in your state in Delaware. Now, is there more organizations like yours across the nation that are helping in this, or is yours the first of its kind to come and help these poor women and men, of course?
Across the nation, there definitely are other organizations. There's one in Tennessee it's called the Bridge of Hope, that is created by Kimberly Benson. And Kimberly, I actually had the pleasure to meet last February, and she was a huge inspiration for me to create my organization. I was actually planning on waiting a few more years, and she encouraged me to not wait, to do this now. It's needed. So she was a huge inspiration for me. As I said, Annie Lobert created Hopers for Jesus in Las Vegas, Nevada. So there are organizations across the nation. Delaware has nothing. We have several great organizations that are working with the trafficking court and providing counseling, but they do not focus on sex trafficking in general, as specifically, and they do not have housing, which is what we want to do. We want to provide housing for these women, because when you're in that life, when you're wanting to leave it, it's very difficult to make that choice when you're still surrounded by all the same people and living in the same place. So we want to be able to provide a home where they can actually stay in their recovery process that pulls them out of that place. It makes it a little easier when you're on the outside. And that's what we want to do. So there are organizations here in Delaware that are working with them. SOAR is one. Brandywine Counseling is one. They're working with the courts here in Delaware, and I am so thankful to be able to be working with them. I know I'm going to be learning a lot from them. But they don't focus specifically on sex trafficking, and Meet Me at the Well is focusing specifically on sex trafficking. Right now, what we're doing is we are educating the community. We're doing, we're talking to churches, home groups, PTAs, schools, and anybody else who will listen. And we're doing free presentations on what sex trafficking is, what it looks like, how to prevent it, what to do if you suspect somebody's being sex trafficked, and what we're doing here in Delaware. But our long-term goal is the recovery home. As soon as right now we are an organization in the state of Delaware legally, but we are not federally recognized. So we have all of our documents completed for our 501c3, but we have not raised enough funds to file. As soon as we have that,
do you still need to raise?
Honestly, it's a really small amount. I think it's probably less than $200. We have a GoFundMe page set up where our goal is $1,500 because we need to file the 501c3, but we still need some stuff. As I said, our presentations we're doing for free. We're not charging for them because we want to get the word out. So, and we're a new organization, so we're doing it for free, but we need to cover some expenses there as well. You know, we have brochures that we need to get printed and things like that, so we need to cover those expenses. And as soon as we have that, we are going to be applying for the grants and all so that we can get a home. We are hoping that by the end of this year, if we don't have a home in place, we will at least be in the process of getting one. Because the recovery home is really our goal. Our goal is for the women to be able to be self-reliant and self-confident and have skills so that they can have a job outside of this, that they can actually be successful, have potential of job advancements, that they'll be able to live on their own and support themselves outside of this life. And most importantly, they'll be able to have control over their lives, because these are people who have never had control. They've always had somebody else who's had control for them. So that's the main goal.
Now now you bring up a good point that you want them to take control of their life. How are we able to communicate with these poor people over here when you got their pimp watching them over their back? How do you guys handle that type of situation? Do you let them come to you? Do you go over to them? Because obviously there's many places they can go. There's in front of bars, they're on the streets, they're on the freeway, they're everywhere. How do you get these young women and sometimes young men to come to your organization and to actually get help to your organization? Do they actually have to come to you for help?
We do plan on having some street outreach where we are going to be out on the street just letting women know that we're here if you want to talk to us. We're not going to pressure, but if you want to talk to us, we're here. In the meantime, we want to help you where you are. You need clothes? You need a coat? Let me see if I can find you a coat. You need some feminine products? Here, let me give you some feminine products. So that we're there, so that they see we honestly care about them. And then when they're ready to talk to us, then we'll be there and they can trust us. But, trust is a big thing. You can't just go out there and say, hey, come with me. And they go, oh, okay, because it's not going to happen. That's not reality. They don't trust us. And they have no reason to trust me. That woman doesn't know me. What makes me different from anybody else who has used her entire life? So the key is to show that you actually are sincere about them. So just being there, and I know, as I mentioned, Brandywine Counseling, he's working with the trafficking court. They actually do have a program where they go out on the street and do things like that. So we're hoping to team up with them here in Delaware to do that. And as far as the recovery home, that will also come from the courts. We're hoping to work with the courts and Commissioner McDonough that they can refer women who are ready to take that step, that they will refer women to us, and we will be that place that they can go.
Now, you mentioned law enforcement, and sometimes they get paid off. Some portion of law enforcement is good. How supportive is law enforcement to you in your efforts? Are they supportive of you? Do they help you in regards to what you are trying to do?
Honestly, I have not had an opportunity to speak with law enforcement. As I said, we have not gotten out on the streets yet, and it's something I do want to do, and I'm definitely planning on getting in touch with our law enforcement around here before we hit the streets. I do know that the law enforcement is working well with the court. As I said, the human trafficking court in Delaware, I know that they are working well with the law enforcement. They are trying to get law enforcement to realize what they're there for. It's hard to get word spread out. The trafficking court here in Delaware, or the trauma-informed care court, it's a newer program. I believe it's only been here for about 3 years. So it's a newer program here in Delaware, and to get officers to realize, oh, I arrested a prostitute. Oh, I'm supposed to let her know about this program. It's getting the word out. I think as a whole, I would say that the law enforcement here is supportive. As a whole. But, I can't speak for everybody in the departments.
Of course. I was just speaking in general of whether you were getting the support or not, and you've answered that question. I want to move on to the churches here briefly, because you know what? Some people, and including these prostitutes, will think people in these churches will think that these people within the churches, the members of the churches, are judgmental and think of them as sinners, and they don't want to help. How do you convince a church, or how do you speak to a church when the church is maybe not so convinced on wanting to get involved in this, especially when it's not really socially correct? Because we spoke about the social change that has happened here in the United States and how naive the American public is about this, and so is our churches about this. They don't want to accept that, hey, right down the road there could be a prostitute standing out at the end of the street.
Yeah. Sadly, churches have given themselves that name. There's so many hypocrites in the church, and sadly that's where it comes from. That view of, oh, well, they're not going to like me. But the way I talk to them is read your Bible. Honestly, our name, Meet Me at the Well, comes from John chapter 4, where Jesus met the prostitute at the well. She was an adulterous woman he met at the well. And, there's three things about that always stood out to me so much. One is he was a Jew and she was a Samaritan. And at that time, Jews and Samaritans hated each other. They didn't talk at all. He was a man. She was a woman. A man should not have been talking to a woman. And then the biggest point here, she was an adulterous woman. She was at the well at a time of day when nobody else was there because her town scorned her. Nobody wanted to be seen with her. But Jesus was willing to talk to her and step out to her. And that's only one story in the New Testament that talks about prostitutes. There are multiple other stories in the New Testament of adulterous women, of prostitutes, where Jesus did not treat them in a disrespectful manner, that he gave them respect when they were in a position to not have respect according to those around them. But Jesus showed them that didn't matter. So that's how I talk to people. If you honestly believe what Jesus taught, if you honestly believe in Jesus, you don't go throwing stones at people. You let them know that, you know what, I love you no matter what. It doesn't matter what you've done. I love you, and I want to see better for you because you deserve better. You don't deserve this life.
You're so right about this, and I certainly hope that churches, not only in the state of Delaware, where you guys are headquartered out of, but churches across the nation decide to help with this issue. Because you know what, and I hate to use this term, but many churches have came into the saying that we're not of this world. I hate to correct the church on anything, and it's far from me to do it, but when I hear a pastor say that we are not of this world, we are part of this world. We were born in this world. We are on this world for a purpose. And I am a born-again Christian, so I will speak to this, and I am not preaching to the audience, but I will say and speak openly about this, that the Lord did put us on the earth for a certain reason. and he wanted us to do something to help. He wanted us to help, not only help the non-believers, he wanted us to help the people that are in need, especially the people such as these poor prostitutes, these people being human trafficked. We thought slavery was taken care of after the Civil War was over, when the slaves were freed by Abraham Lincoln. That is so not the case. There's many countries around the world who still have slavery. As I mentioned that statistic, Amy, 42% of people in the United States are slaves, and they may not be slaves in what we think they are, but they are slaves in a way that in their minds that they think that there is no way out, and that there's no one who cares about them, and that there's no one who can help them.
Yeah, and honestly, talking about, slaves back in the 1800s, how many of them actually had chains holding them to where they were? How many slaves were actually chained to stay? They knew they couldn't leave. They didn't, there were slaves that ran away, but most of them didn't run away because they knew there were consequences for running away. So what's the difference now? Because there are more slaves today than at any other point in history, and people don't realize that. Everybody thinks of the 1800s and the transatlantic slave trade as the height of slavery, but there's more slaves today than at that point. And now there's no racial barrier. Yes, most slaves in America, it's about 40% are, it's about 40% are black, 25% are white, and about 24% are Hispanic. So, yes, most are not white. White is the minority still there, but it does happen. It happens across all barriers. It doesn't matter what skin color you are. It doesn't matter what your background is. It doesn't matter what country you come from. It happens to everybody. And you were saying, go ahead.
Please continue.
You had said, I just want to back it up a little bit, the part about how we're not of this world. And I think people take that out of context a lot. There is a verse in the Bible that says that we are to be in the world, but not of the world. And people take that out of context to mean that we need to separate ourselves. But that is absolutely not what that verse meant. It means that we're supposed to be in the midst of things. We're supposed to be in the thick of everything terrible, but that we're not supposed to let that affect us and change us to be part of that as well. We're not supposed to become corrupt like those around us. We're supposed to be in the midst of that corruptness and change everyone else around us. We're supposed to let everyone else see the light. That's what that verse means. And people take it out of context.
Too.
Exactly.
All right, Amy, before we wrap up, and I thank you for staying with us for an extra segment tonight, tell us a little bit about your organization over in the state of Delaware. What you covered briefly of what you guys do. Tell people what your goals are and what you guys need. How can we help you out as an organization? You mentioned that you need $1,500. You are $200 away from getting your official status, but you need $1,500 alone just for expenses. Tell people how they can help you guys over at Meet Me at the Well.
Sure. As I said, the community outreach is what we're doing now, and the recovery is our goal. That's where my passion is. We definitely are in need of donations. Our website is thewellde.org, and if you go there, we have a donate tab. Because we don't have our 501c3 yet, we are not tax deductible. We can't offer those tax deductible donations until we have that. But, we can still accept donations. So we have an address that people can mail a check to if they choose to mail a check. And we also have a GoFundMe account set up if anybody wants to do it electronically. And that is GoFundMe.com/thewellde. And that also is on our website under the donate page. And there's also, if people are local to Delaware, we have volunteer opportunities. That's on our website as well. And even if people are not local to Delaware, we have other needs that if somebody wants to help us, by all means, we need photos donated that we are able to use on brochures, website, and whatever else. We need somebody who has some legal expertise to kind of help us in that area, somebody who has tax or auditing experience that can help us when it comes time for that. We have an amazing board. I have 5 board members, including myself, and I have been blessed to have amazing board members. Everybody has a true passion for this, and I actually didn't even know several of them before Meet Me at the Well. We actually kind of connected because of our similar interests, and yet we all have very differing lives and very differing opinions, and I think that's great on our board because we bring different things to the table. But there are certain things that we can't cover. So all of this is on our website, which again is thewellde.org. So we definitely have volunteer opportunities, and yes, donations would be greatly appreciated.
You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to see if we could put you in contact with Liz Lores. She was on right before the Evan Miller Report tonight. I know she has some advertising and business experience. I'm not sure about the legal experience. I'm sure we can find someone for you for that. We're going to try to assist you in this, Amy, as much as we possibly can. And if Sean Lewis is listening, I would like Sean to see if we can post up some more information about your organization, how people can help, and a link to your website via shrmedia.com. And if Sean is not listening, of course, I will be talking to him later after the broadcast scene. If we could start up a page for you guys in helping these people. Because, ladies and gentlemen, I think this is important. Not only do we need to help our military veterans, because our military veterans are important, we need to help these people too. Because you know what? Human trafficking is a big problem. Just like the illegal immigration issue is a problem. Why does a lot of this issues happen with illegal immigration? It all ties in with this human trafficking. And a lot of it goes under the headlines that, yes, we talk about the immigration issue happening all the time, Amy, but what people don't realize is all these, portion of these young women and men who are coming across the border illegally are coming over for the purpose of sex trafficking. And we need to do something to help that, not only change our immigration law, enforce our immigration laws, but we need to help these people. Obviously, we can't send them back to their home country because the same thing will happen back again. And ladies and gentlemen, I'm not one for amnesty, but in this case, since we are allowing this to happen, I sort of feel that we sort of have an obligation that if this is happening on our American soil, that we at least need to help these people get their lives back on track. Because you know what? As Amy said, these people, some of these people, not all of these people, but some of these people at a very young age were forced into this. They don't know any better. They've been forced into this. They've been mentally forced to think that this is what they're to do with their lives. And we need to seriously change that. And we need to change our approach and how we approach this.
Yeah, absolutely. And, like you said, I the laws that are saying if somebody is a victim of sex trafficking, it automatically entitles them to stay in this country. I 100% agree with that. If they're not a violent criminal, if they are a victim of, or not just sex trafficking, human trafficking, if they're a victim of human trafficking, I think we've allowed it to happen in this country, and we owe them the recovery. And if we send them back to wherever they came from, we're sending them back to an environment of abuse. And I don't think that's the answer at all.
I don't think it is either. And as being a strong opponent of illegal immigration, as I stated earlier, ladies and gentlemen, I think there is an exemption to the rule when it comes to these young kids who are being harmed, and not only by the human trafficking, but being sexually, physically, and mentally harmed. And for those of you who think that being assaulted mentally doesn't do anything to you, that you have to have something physically done to you, I can speak from experience, ladies and gentlemen. The mental assault can be just as damaging as the physical assault, and I still deal with it after all these years. It's going on 7 years since my incident, Amy, and I am still dealing with it from day to day. And I can only imagine what these poor young men and young women have to go through day to day in having to deal with this.
Absolutely, and I'm a survivor of abuse as a child, and I always say I would never ever compare sexual abuse, physical abuse, mental abuse, emotional abuse, any of it. I wouldn't say that any one of them is any worse than anything else. They are all equally damaging in different ways, but they are all damaging, every one of them, and none of them is any worse than another.
All right, I have posted your website on our Facebook page for our audience, facebook.com/The Evan Miller Report. As I said, I will be talking to Sean Lewis, the head of shrmedia.com, and talk to our webmaster, see if we get a page set up for you and get a link for people to donate and to help. And if you can't donate financially, we know the economy is hard. They need prayer. There's a prayer group
Absolutely.
on there. And how can people get in touch with your organization other than going to the website? How can people get in touch with you if they just want to pray for you, pray for your organization, pray that you guys are successful in helping these poor men and women?
We have a phone number as well. It's 302-743-7765. We also have a P.O. Box. It's P.O. Box 221 in St. George's, Delaware, 19733. So people can write us. They can call us. I can't promise an answer immediately as, I have I'm a single mother and I have a job that I get paid for and I have this. So I can't promise an immediate answer, but I will contact you back as soon as possible. And write to us, our website. You can email us. It's info, info, @thewellde.org. You can email us, write us, call us, and definitely prayer is probably the number one thing we need. And we do have a prayer email that goes out. If you wanted to be on that list, under our Get Involved page, there is the email that you can send an email to and just say prayer team, and we will put you on that email.
Amy, I'm so glad you decided to come on tonight's program. I'm glad you were on. I heard you on the Exceptional Conservative show last night, and as the head of the SHR Media Network, I'd like to, at least of the news department, I'd like to thank you for coming on tonight, explaining how harmful human trafficking and sex trafficking is in the United States, and what we can do about it and how we can fight it. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
And we'd like you to come back again. Please come back when you have your full tax status, and maybe you can update us later when you have some future event available as well for people who are over in the Delaware area who can come out and help you at your event.
Yeah, actually, I since you're mentioning that, I didn't think about that. The third Saturday of every month, we actually do have a craft and resale shop set up in Newcastle, Delaware. It's actually in an auto shop. It's a family store that somebody is letting us use some space. It's Collins Parts Plus, which is on Route 9 just outside of Old Newcastle in Delaware. It's 800 Wilmington Road, Newcastle, Delaware, 19720. And it's the third Saturday of every month that we are doing a resale craft shop. And it's from 8:30 to 2, I believe. 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. the third Saturday every month. And that is as well on our website under our events page.
All right, and I have posted the link to the website once again, ladies and gentlemen, facebook.com/The Evan Miller Report. Link is up there. Please click the link. Check out the website. If you want to join the prayer list, go over to go over to where Liz said, over in the resources section, the Get Involved section. Look at the many resources that website provides, and let's start helping these people across the nation, because this isn't only in one state. This is in every state in the United States. We want to eliminate slavery. We're the nation of freedom. We want to continue to be that despite whoever we have in office, whatever political party we have. We as Americans have an obligation that if we are to remain the land of the free and the home of the brave, that we lead by example and we eliminate this 42%. I hope that we can eliminate this 42% and make it go down to 0%. That's my goal.
Yeah.
And I think Amy would agree with me on that.
Absolutely.
So, Amy, thanks so much, and say many thanks to your board members for what they're doing, taking times out of their personal lives and sacrificing probably a lot of time with their family too, and helping these poor victims over there. And as I said, we'd like to have you back. You have my telephone number and you have my email. Please email me or give me a call when you guys have an update, when you want to come on next. You are welcome anytime.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. It was great talking to you.
It was great talking to you as well. That's Amy Day, ladies and gentlemen. Meet me at the well. We're going to take a short break, and we will be right back with Corey Evans, the lawsuits across America, and the entertainment report, and we will be right back.
Some of America's bravest warriors are returning home wounded. Here's one of them.
My name is Norberto Lara. I served for 11 years in the United States Army. While I was on a combat patrol in Baqaba, Iraq, a rocket-propelled grenade took my arm off at the shoulder. When I came home, I felt alone. My family was around me, but I couldn't talk to them about what I'd seen and what I'd done. I remember just thinking, man, the way I am right now, I don't want to live. I was discharged from the Army, and I've been working with the Wounded Warrior Project since 2007. You don't have to be severely wounded to be with the Wounded Warrior Project. We do have a lot of guys that have post-traumatic stress disorder. Being able to share your story, I guess it kind of helps you wrap your mind around what did happen over there. Just because you have left the military doesn't mean your life is over. Because when these guys are coming home, I'm kind of leading and training them. Instead of for combat, I'm leading and training them to heal. If I come away with anything from Wounded Warrior Project, it's them giving my life back. My name is Norby, and yes, I do suffer from post-traumatic stress disorder, but I'm okay.
Don't suffer in silence. Contact woundedwarriorproject.org.
St. Jude is leading the way childhood cancer is treated and defeated in communities across America.
And no family receives a bill from St. Jude, not for treatment, travel, housing, or food.
So parents at St. Jude can focus on what matters most, helping their child live.
Give thanks.
Give thanks.
Give thanks for the healthy kids in your life and give to those who are not. Go to stjude.org or shop wherever you see the St. Jude logo.
Radio.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
How you doing? John Grant here. When I'm not slaving over a hot microphone on the 405radio.com Saturdays at 10 a.m. Eastern, I check out Sean and Clint here at Sackheads Radio. We all appreciate the best political bloggers, writers, and commentators. We either get them on our shows or we make fun of them, as it should be. So check us out live Saturdays at 10 a.m. Eastern or forever on the podcasts on the 405radio.com.
This is Tammy Jackson, inviting you to join me on the Tammy Jackson Show every Tuesday night at 7 p.m. Pacific on the 405radio.com. Put down that remote and tune into the show that covers politics, guns and the Second Amendment, religious liberties, sanctity of life, the military, and more. I host newsworthy guests and work hard to be a conservative radio show that's not like all the others. So save Tuesday nights at 7 p.m. Pacific for me, Tammy Jackson, on the 405media.com.
Hello, I'm Paul, a student at Hillsdale College. Here is my professor, Dr. Larry Arnn, on the separation of church and state.
America's founders believed in the separation of church and state, in that the country was not to have an official religion or an official sect. But that did not mean that government was to be hostile to religion, or even indifferent to religion, as many today argue. In fact, America's founding document, the Declaration of Independence, includes both a reference to God as the author of the laws of nature and a confident assertion that human beings are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights. Far from being hostile or indifferent to religion, America's founders understood the theology of the Declaration to be an essential part of the education of citizens.
This Constitution Minute was brought to you by Hillsdale College. To join the national conversation on the Constitution, go to constitutionminute.org.
Hi, this is Rooster from Outcry Radio. Catch me here on Blog Talk Radio every Saturday night at 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, or follow my blog. Now, back to the Sackheads.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Is radio.
Let's get back to the Evan Miller Report on SHR Media and Pundit Press Radio.
And welcome back to the Evan Miller Report. I'm Jason Miller. Many thanks again to Amy Day for joining us from Meet Me at the Well. That, ladies and gentlemen, I don't often say this, but that was one of the best interviews we've ever had on this program, and I'm glad we had that interview and took the time to do it tonight. We're still trying to reach Corey Evan, by the way. We're having a bit of an issue getting him back on the air tonight, so we're hoping we can get him in the next couple minutes here to do tonight's Lawsuits Across America and the Entertainment Report. But once again, please go to www.thewellde.org. That's www.thewellde.org. Go there, get more information. Go over to the Get Involved section, and if you're a God-fearing person, please go over to the Get Involved section and email them and put in the subject line that you want to join in with the prayer team. I think this is essential, ladies and gentlemen, in helping against this problem of human trafficking here in the United States. This needs to stop in this country. We can be the country that tells Africa that they need to stop doing it, yet we are still allowing it to happen in our country. So we need to lead by example, and maybe other countries around the world will follow our example if we decide to clean up at home. Instead of trying to tell others how to run their country, we need to work on our own country first. That's just something to think about, ladies and gentlemen. And I'm hoping we're going to get Corey Evan back here in a couple minutes, because I really would like him to be on to do tonight's Lawsuits Across America and the Entertainment Report. And I hope we can get him here. We're still awaiting him to call back in here on the program. So we will certainly see if we can get him. Matter of fact, what we will do, don't normally do this, but we're going to open up the line, see if we can get him. Alright, let's see if we have this line open. Okay, I believe we do have Corey Evan back. Corey, welcome back.
So I'm finally back on. 6:30, not too bad. Went for a whole hour, that interview.
It was just that good to allow it to go that long, Corey. All right, ladies and gentlemen, Corey Evan is back, so it is time, without any further ado, for tonight's Lawsuits Across America.
And now it's time for Lawsuits Across America. The cases are real. All rise for the Honorable Corey Evan.
And thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Please be seated and come to order. Lawsuits Across America is now in session. First item on the docket from San Antonio, Texas, out of KSAT.com. San Antonio's first star, Tim Duncan, has filed a lawsuit seeking more than $1 million in damages against a longtime personal and financial advisor. The lawsuit claims Charles Banks of Georgia betrayed Duncan by persuading him to invest money in hotel, beauty products, sports merchandise, and wine industries. In one of the investments, the lawsuit alleges Banks instructed Game Day Entertainment, LLC, to pay him 20% of money due to Duncan, which the lawsuit claims Duncan didn't authorize. Quote, unfortunately, while Banks was willing to use his position with Game Day to secure payments for himself, he was not willing to ensure that Duncan's interests were protected, the lawsuit stated. The lawsuit was filed Thursday night in Bexar County. Next up off Newark, New Jersey from NJ.com. Tenants displaced when an Edgewater apartment complex went in flames this month filed a $5 million federal class action suit yesterday that accuses complex owners of using wood prone to fire during construction. But isn't all fire prone to fire? Isn't all wood prone to fire, excuse me. Alessandro DeMarco and his wife Amanda Baer filed the suit in U.S. District Court on behalf of themselves and more than 1,000 others displaced by the 7-alarm fire at Avalon at Edgewater on January 21st. The lawsuit is believed to be the first filed against Avalon Bay Communities in federal court. 2 others have been filed against the company in state superior court in Bergen County. Baer and DeMarco lived in the Russell building next to the complex's 257-unit River building, which burned down, the lawsuit adds. They say they were forced out of their apartment for 4 days and lost personal belongings they had kept in a storage locker in the Russell building. Fire officials say the blaze was sparked by a blowtorch that maintenance workers were using to do plumbing work in a wall. The couple's lawyers accused the company of negligence for failing to properly oversee construction and maintenance work at the complex. And indeed, if you are using a blowtorch, be careful, construction people, because this will happen. You'll end up here. And Jay, listen carefully to this one. The family of a Texas man who might be the latest victim of exploding auto airbags made by Takata Corporation of Japan has filed a lawsuit in connection with his death. The lawsuit alleges 35-year-old Carlos Solis died on January 18th in a minor crash in a Houston suburb when an airbag in his 02 Accord inflated and sent a piece of metal into its neck. The final autopsy report has not been completed, but in addition to Takata, also named in the lawsuit filed Tuesday, are Honda Motor Company, American subsidiary, as well as the Houston area car dealership that sold Solis the vehicle used in 2014. A spokesman for Honda declined to comment. A Takata spokesman didn't return an email for comment. And thus, the saga of Takata airbags continues in Lawsuits Across America, and we will bring you the latest updates as they become available. Until then, I'm Corey Evans saying, case dismissed. Right, and I've got a couple of stories and entertainment for you to wrap things up tonight. It's another boy for Shakira. She and her longtime partner, Gerard Pique, announced the birth of Sasha Pique Mubarak, that's a name, on Friday on her website. The couple's second child was born on January 29th in Barcelona. Why Sasha, you ask? Quote, the name Sasha is of Greek and Russian descent and means defender of mankind and warrior, said a note on the singer's site. Their eldest son, Milan, is 2. Shakira and baby Sasha are both in excellent health, according to USA Today. Congratulations, you guys. And I'll go straight into the Super Bowl because that's what everyone's going to be talking about this weekend. There it is. Missy Elliott will make a surprise appearance during Katy Perry's Super Bowl 49 halftime show performance, according to the AP, citing an anonymous person familiar with the plan. Consider the surprise ruined. The rapper made a cameo on a remix of Perry's 2011 single last Friday night, though it's unclear which track she'll perform. The show takes place Sunday, February 1st at the University of Phoenix Stadium in Glendale, Arizona. So, ladies and gentlemen, you've got quite a show to look forward to, at least the guys do. I don't know about how girls feel about this one, but I digress, ladies and gentlemen. Me being a guy.
Will not be watching this year.
I gather you are not so much a fan of either of those two.
No. not on the top of my list whatsoever. Probably near the bottom 500.
Oh, man. Katy Perry, consider yourself warned. Jason Miller, not a fan of yours. And with that, I'll wrap up entertainment. I'm Corey Evans, sending it back to Jason Miller. And might I say, you kept me waiting a long time there.
Well, Corey, as I always say, when there's a good interview running, you just
let it go. Yes, just keep it running. Keep it going as long as possible.
Yes, and unfortunately, we're going to quote the song "Let It Go" from that Walt Disney movie called Frozen.
Frozen, yes.
Which is still ever so popular.
And I have a feeling that they're eventually going to be pressured into making a sequel. And when they do that, I will report on that. But in the meantime, that's good night for me, Jay.
All right, Corey, thank you so much. And ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us tonight on this very special edition of the Evan Miller Report for this Friday, January the 30th, 2015. For Corey Evan, I'm Jason Miller, saying so long from San Diego and Los Angeles. We'll talk to you on Monday. Special thanks again to Amy Day from the organization Meet Me at the Well, and special thanks for Ken McClinton on starting off that great interview last night. Once again, for all of us here at SHR, we wish you a great night. Coming up following this program is the repeat of Liz Laura's Soldier Talk Radio here on the program. Good night, everybody.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.